Hello and welcome back to the Red Team virtual Mayhem Summit. Our next speaker is Jorge Orchilles. Maybe I said that wrong. More than likely I said it wrong. Anyway, he's going to be talking about Red Team Adversary Emulation. Take it away, Jorge.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no one ever gets my name right. It's just something I've lived with the last 30 years of my life. The easiest way is Jorge Orchilles, but you tried, so I appreciate that. And thank you to you, to Omar, to everyone that organized this. Very good talks. I was able to catch a few earlier on, and awesome content, really raising the bar and making me even more nervous. Today, we're going to talk about adversary emulation, and I did sync up with a bunch of other speakers, so not going to go too much into definitions because Jonas is going to cover that. Also, the recording of me going through the first few slides of this, I presented at DerpCon about 2 weeks ago, so you can catch that there. Really, what I want to do is a live adversary emulation of APT-19 using Empire and Starkiller, and it's going to be all live. I don't have videos like Jose and Rod did, which, awesome job on preparation. I'm just going to wing it, and if something fails, hey, we're Red Team. We're used to things failing all the time and working to figure it out. So here we go. I am sharing my screen. I am on Discord, Red Team Talks. So if you do have questions, I'll switch over little by little just to check them out and take some questions at the end. Who am I? I've ran the offensive team at a large financial for the past 10 years. We were about 7 or 8 people, and I actually just resigned. Did some things with the community. Latest is a founding member of MITRE's Ingenuity Center. So MITRE does MITRE ATT&CK, which we'll cover. And if anyone's playing a drinking game, there's my first mention of ATT&CK. So go ahead and chug some of that beer. I've written some frameworks. I have a 2-day Red Team course with SANS Security 564. That's actually a lab environment we're going to do here because, why not? And it's on adversary emulation. So here we go. What is adversary emulation? It's a type of Red Team exercise. We're not going to sit here and debate what Red Team does. Red Team does a lot of things. In an adversary emulation, though, we are going to emulate how an adversary operates following the same tactics, techniques, and procedures with the same objective that adversary does. So generally, the goal is to emulate an end-to-end attack all the way from outside the network reconnaissance all the way through to action on objectives. Why do this? Well, that's one of the main differentiators between pen testing and Red Team and adversary emulation. We are doing full end-to-end, not with a limited scope, right? A kind of pen test got really watered down, which is a shame. To only focus on technology, focus on exploiting something. What Red Teams and adversaries emulations do is they do full end-to-end, and they test not only technology, but also people and process. So we will fish people, we'll actually get in, we'll see how their processes work, etc. The difference between Red Team and Purple Team is that Red Team engagements are blind and unannounced. There are certain people that know, we call them the white cell, but most of the time these are blind assessments. And really we determine what adversary TTPs worked against the target environment. I did say I'm going to go fast through here because this is all recorded and want to get live hands-on. Another thing for adversary emulation is to measure the effectiveness of people, process, and technology. When you have a Red Team doing all this, we can create a plan. We can time things like how long it took us to get in, how long it took us, when did we execute something, etc. And then we can analyze that with our blue teams. We also test assumptions. The latest one was after January with the assassination of Soleimani. Many boards were asking, and seniors, what can Iranian threat actors do to us? Well, if you emulate and understand how Iranian threat actors work through cyber threat intelligence and then doing adversary emulations, you can answer that question. And really the main goal of Red is to make blue better. I think it was Ryan O'Hara who says in a Hackfest talk that the only way to do Red Team wrong is to ignore the blue team. So by measuring the people, process, and technology and doing these exercises, we're going to learn lessons. We're going to improve processes. and it really should be seen as red and blue working together. If you're into martial arts, which I know a lot of you are, you train, right? You spar, you have that sparring partner or partners, and you're both on the same team, you're training, and then when that adversary does come trying to get in, you all work together to fight. There's frameworks to do this, the cyber kill chain, so another chug if anyone had that. Unified cyber kill chain by Paul Poles really fixes a lot of things from the original cyber kill chain. The issue with the original cyber kill chain is that from command and control to action of objectives is there are no steps, which we know there are a lot of the ones we're going to do here. And then there's a whole bunch of regulatory frameworks. I was a co-author of the last one called A Framework for the Regulatory Use of Penetration Testing and Red Team in the Financial Services Industry, because we had every single regulator asking us to do these tests. And if 6 of them ask us to do one once a year, then it gets very hard to actually do. And of course, what ended up happening was this XKCD, where you had a bunch of competing standards in various regulations. And we said, oh my gosh, that's too many. Let's create another one. And now we have 15 competing standards. So mandatory slide on MITRE ATT&CK. This is what we map to. MITRE ATT&CK stands for Adversary Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge. I know we've already talked about this, but if you missed the other talks and you've never heard of this, then you really need to check it out because everything maps to this. So we're going to cover first threat intelligence. We need, with the threat intelligence, to understand how an adversary works. We can match and then come up with an adversary emulation plan, run that plan, and when we show the blue team what we did, we also map back to this. So shout out to MITRE and ATT&CK, and their sightings are open. So if you see any tactic, technique, or procedure being used in the wild, report it. Send it to MITRE ATT&CK. You'll get your name as a collaborator. And you're awesome if you do. Thank you for contributing. So when doing an adversary emulation, you need a bigger framework. It's not just about getting in. I know a lot of us just like that part, but it's not. There's actually a framework behind this. The one that I helped write starts with threat intelligence, understanding adversaries. So you should like to read if you're in information security as a whole. And it does matter whether you're an awesome red teamer or not. You have to know a little bit about threat intelligence and what adversaries are actually doing. There's actually ongoing jokes in the threat intel community and the blue team community being where they say, oh, that's a red team versus, oh, that's a real adversary. We should really try to bridge that gap. If we're emulating an adversary, we should try to act like them. And to act like them, we have to understand them. And that is why cyber threat intelligence is important. Then you need to plan. You need to come up with an adversary emulation plan, which we'll do here. Then you test, which I will do live. Pray to demo God. Start praying now, please. And then closure, actually showing value and improvement over time. So for tactics, techniques, and procedures, this is an example of a FireEye report. You need to extract the tactics, techniques, and procedures because that's what you're going to emulate. Now, threat intelligence has a lot of things. Enter the pyramid of pain. Another chug of your beer if you're playing along. Hash values don't matter to the red team. We're not going to emulate that. We're not going to emulate IP addresses or domain names. We may emulate some network and host artifacts. We may emulate some tools, but we're really trying to emulate tactics, techniques, and procedures. That is what we want the blue teams to catch because tools can change. IP addresses can change. All that can change. The TTPs are the toughest to change. And that is where we focus on trying to emulate those and for the blue teams to come up with detective and alerting controls for them. A lot of these you cannot prevent, like command line interfaces. You can't just disable cmd.exe or PowerShell, right? We know this. So that's what we want to focus on. And we're going to use ATT&CK Navigator. This I'll actually do live for you. I used ATT&CK Navigator to pull up the TTPs for APT19. I'll show you exactly how I did that and then come up with a plan, which is what we're going to do today. So how's that for a quick intro? So APT19, I'll show you this in a different format because I understand that this is a table and people hate looking at tables, but this is a very brief and quick adversary emulation plan. It's based on threat intel. We know APT19 is a Chinese-based threat group. They generally get into networks and maintain command and control for future attacks. Then I break it up. I always start with command and control first because that is your channel to do everything else. Before you gain initial access, you need to set up command and control. So for this one, they use commonly used ports. That's technique 1043 on port 80. Now I know when I set up a C2, I need to set it up on port 80. They use standard application layer protocol, T171, T1071. That means over HTTP in this case. They use deobfuscation and decoding. They use data encoding as well with base 64. They do spear phishing and spear phishing link and attachments for initial access. And then execution is done through PowerShell, through user execution, and through hidden windows. And here you can actually get some more details of what commands they're using. In this case, a -w inside of PowerShell. They're also obfuscating files and information using base 64. Then for discovery, they do system domain user discovery, system information discovery, system network configuration. For persistence, they do registry run keys. And for defense evasion, they do reg SVR32 and scripting. So this is our adversary emulation plan. This is what we're going to try to do once I go live. Before that, though, we need planning. And this is where white cells come in. If we're doing a blind test, you have to have a white cell. Those are the people that know that this exercise is going to happen. And don't let the actual players know. The reason for that is that if someone's on a blue team and they see that it's a red team, their behavior changes. They're like, this is just a red team. Let me go focus on actual adversaries. And then your metrics are skewed. So you need rules of engagement to keep both teams playing, even if if they figure out that it is a exercise. And then on the right, you have attack infrastructure. Now, this was covered heavily by the previous talks. Definitely catch those. Attack infrastructure is a full day long course on setting up hosting providers, buying domains, generating domain certificates, setting up email servers, setting up phishing sites, credential theft sites, gaining reputation, categorizing those domains, and then setting up redirectors, short haul, long haul, C2, etc. So I love that, but we don't got time for that. So C2 matrix is something I do want to cover real quick. This is a matrix of a number of command and control frameworks. There's actually 43 of them. And I've seen some of these already mentioned today. Jose mentioned Merlin. He actually went to the C2 matrix, saw that Merlin was already compiled and something that ran on Linux. That's why he chose that for his container backdoor. I saw Silent Trinity also mentioned. So there's a number of them, and they all have different capabilities. That is what matters. If you're going to emulate an adversary, you need to pick those TTPs first, which we did already, and then you find which C2 is better. So it's not like, oh, I only like using Cobalt Strike, or I only like Empire, I only like Merlin, or Silent Trinity, or Covenant, right? It doesn't matter. It's a tool to do TTPs. You need to use the one that will facilitate you emulating these two TTPs. So I'm going to do a demo of this. I'm also going to release something here today for all of you, which is actually just got tweeted out. I set a tweet for 2:30. If you follow C2 Matrix, you will see what it is. And that's an update of a Sans Slingshot C2 Matrix edition, release 2020.5. It's a virtual machine that has 8 of these C2s already installed. It's what I'm going to use for this demo. Changelog involves the latest version of Empire, which is supported. Starkiller, which is its GUI. That's what we're going to use here. Also updates to Vector, which I'll talk about later, and updates to a few other things. So that is out. It's a Dropbox link. You can click on it, download it, and use it. There's also a how-to site, which I will be referencing because it's good to take notes and hopefully allows me to not fail so bad as we go through this. So let's do this live. Let me check first. How's everyone doing over on Discord? I think good. Okay. So first thing, Attack Navigator. Just to show you how easy this is, you go to Attack Navigator. So this site right here, I'll actually reload it just so you see that's completely blank. And to select an adversary, you go to selection tools up here on the top right, do multi-select, and then select APT19. To close it, just hit the multi-select tool again. And then I like changing things to red because we're a red team and I'm wearing a red shirt and this is a red team Mayhem. So here you have the various TTPs that they use. If you don't know what they are, there is the number T1064. You can find out more information. Where does this come from? It comes from MITRE ATT&CK. So attack.mitre.org. Here's APT19. These are the various groups, China-based. These are all the techniques used. This is literally what I took and changed and created into this little table. That's pretty much my very quick adversary emulation plan. I'm going to set up command and control first, and then go through the different areas. It also has software, and look at that. Cobalt Strike and Empire are actually used by this malicious actor, and then there are references for a whole bunch of cyber threat intelligence that explains this. So cool. Everyone know who we're emulating? APT19. This is how I got the info. Then you go over to the c2matrix.com. Over on the top right is the matrix. You click on that. You get a table. This table on the left has all the command and control frameworks that have been evaluated. And you can see the licenses. Cobalt Strike is one that's mentioned, but I need a commercial license. I'm not going to use my commercial license for this demo. I'm going to use Empire, which is right here. And it has a BSD license, which means I don't have to pay for it. It also has the GitHub page, so I can click on this and go and download and install it myself. But we don't have time for that. Shout out to BC Security One on Twitter. They are the ones that maintain it. Evaluators, thank you to everyone that has evaluated C2s. If you have a C2 or want to evaluate one, please just copy this line, whatever line. So someone, please go out and evaluate Peter, not Meterpreter. It is different. You can download it there. Send me this one row and I'll add it onto here. And we appreciate your contributions. So for Empire, you can go through and see that there is a how-to for it. So I can just click on this how-to and it takes me on how to use this. I'll leave that tab open so that we can emulate this shortly. Then I can also see that it is on Slingshot. That's awesome because now I don't have to actually install it. Installing all of these, installing one, easy. You got this. We tell you here how we installed it. Now installing multiple C2s on one system, good luck. All of these have a bunch of different dependencies, bunch of different requirements, and it gets very difficult. Generally, people just create one system for one C2. It's also on Kali. I've been working with the folks at Offensive Security, and shout out to them. I know they're a sponsor. The next version of Kali will actually have all of these C2s that you see here in green. And then as we go through, we learn about various different capabilities. For instance, the server of Empire runs on Python. It's Python 3 now. And the agents that it creates, the payloads, are in PowerShell. It has multi-user support through Starkiller, which I'm going to demo. It's a GUI. It has an API. It could create agents for Windows, Linux, and Mac. And then as I scroll through, you see all the different channels and capabilities. In this case, we needed an HTTP channel, which we see here is marked as yes. Also, you'll see that this is the most common channel that attackers use. If you're in cyber threat intel, shout out to Cheerio. I know you're on. She does some awesome TTI stuff. And look at that. All these C2s also do command control over HTTP. If you want to do something else like DNS over HTTP, which is pretty cool. There's Godot. I know someone mentioned how much they love Go. Then you can learn about their key exchanges, their various different capabilities, if they're supported, if they're actively maintained, if they have a Slack, etc. So that's the C2 matrix. You could go to c2matrix.com, click on the matrix, and you get to that page. Whew, sorry, I'm going super fast. Let me drink some water and see if you all have any questions so far. Okay, I don't see any questions immediately there. So what are we doing today? We're going to use Slingshot. So Sans Slingshot C2 Matrix Edition brings Covenant. Empire 3 with Starkiller. Faction C2 Coatic. Merlin, which was talked about earlier today. Metasploit, which I'm sure most of you know, especially if you come from the pentest world. Silent Trinity and Sliver. It also has Vector, which I'll talk about later. Where can you get it? The latest release is right here on Dropbox. Only for you, only right now. You get it on Dropbox. Come Monday, it's going to be hosted on sans.org. It's a project I've done with them that started with them. So they'll be hosting it there come Monday. And then there's information. Look, there's a video on how to set it up. There's frequently asked questions. What's the password? It's Slingshot. There's the SHA-2, how to use Vector, etc. Also, Apache 2 does come started up. So if you're going to bind to port 80, you're going to have to shut that off. And then we go to Empire, and this is what we're going to do. Now, what am I testing against? I am testing against the SANS Security 564 lab. This is a lab I created for the 2-day class. Today, we're only going to own and really use 2 machines. The email server to send an email, and we are going to compromise endpoint 02 on the bottom right. In the 2-day class, this is what it looks like. You start from the outside. There's a DMZ with a web server. You do recon. We're skipping that step. And you send a social engineering email, whether a link or an attachment. You get access, and then you use these command and control frameworks to move laterally and compromise and emulate a number of different TTPs. So that's what we're going to do. These are my notes, so I'm going to bring it over here to the right, and hopefully this demo works well. I'm going to start right here with run Starkiller because I'm using a virtual machine that already has this running. So this is Slingshot C2 2020.5, just came out. I like testing everything on my own Windows system first, make sure that works, and then I'll send emails and send things to the target environment. So this Windows 10 machine is my machine. It's on the same network. This target 02, you generally wouldn't be able to see their email, and target endpoint 01, you wouldn't be able to see them either. These are people that work at sec564target.com, a fictitious company that we attack. So first things first, we need to see our IP address. With IP address, as stated in the first talk, we don't use ifconfig anymore, and I can see there my IP is 10.0.0.87. My next step is to start Empire. You want to start Empire with sudo because we're binding to port 80. So sudo empire --rest --username and a username and a password. I'm using Jorge for both. Hit enter on that. We'll start Empire. And you also still have this GUI, which is great. You can see I'm on the latest version that just came out, 3.2.1, has 299 modules, 0 listeners, 0 agents active. And then I go to Starkiller. Starkiller is just an app. This is a client. I don't need to run this with root privileges. I run it just with a standard user. And it has a little GUI. It actually already logged me in, but let me log out just so you see. Log out just so you see what the login looks like. So the login, you put localhost 1337 is the default, then Jorge and Jorge. And that should log us in, which it did. If you don't know how I know of this, well, you go over here and you follow these instructions. So this is how you run it. This is starting Starkiller and then log in localhost 1337 and the password. Then using Empire with Starkiller. There's a how-to that I point to. This is the post by BC Security. And this is what I created for what we're going to do here right now, which is my adversary emulation plan. So this APT19, we're going to start with command and control, setting up port 80 over HTTP with base 64 encoding. Then we're going to gain initial access and we'll go through. Here are all my notes so I don't demo fail that hard. First things first is set up a listener. So if you've used Empire before, this is the GUI. So hopefully this is new for you. So we're going to do HTTP 187, port is 80, bind IP is 10.0.0.187. This is where demos will fail. I'm going to leave it at 5 seconds because we don't want to wait that long between beacons. And then set up a jitter. It's actually a requirement on Starkiller. I haven't tested, but always set a jitter. Jitter is what percentage of time to skew from your default delay. So default delay is 5 seconds. If I set it to 0.5, that's a 50% jitter. So every 2.5 seconds to 7.5 seconds, pseudo randomly, it will call out. Other than that, you should obviously change some of these things, like change the profiles, change the headers, etc. Change the staging key so no one owns your infrastructure. You can also go into the options field and do HTTPS. You can set the path, you can set cookies, you can set kill dates, all things that you would normally do if I had more time, but I don't. So we're just going to create this listener. So I submitted it. And now I think I've emulated at least like 3 of these so far, which is setting up a listener on port 80 over HTTP. What do we do next? Good thing I have notes. Then we want to create stagers. So I'm going to do 3 different stagers just to play and hope that all these work. First is an HTA file. This is an HTML application. Most organizations are blocking this. Today, you should definitely look into that if you're not. The other one is an SCT file because we need to do reg SVR. And to do that, you need an SCT file. I'll show you how to do that. We're going to create the stager. And then we're going to do DLL, create a DLL because I'm going to try to do that reflective DLL. So I like going through and just generating the stagers all at once. We go here to the stagers. You see no stager, generate a stager. So the first one will be an HTA. The listener is HTTP. That's the one we set. And then base64 to true because that's one of the things we're emulating. Obfuscation is set to false. We can set that to true. So it obfuscates and base64 decodes. Why? Because most blue teams know that if they see some base64 data, they decode it, right? Base64 is encoding. It's not hashing or encryption, so it's very quick to do. So we're going to do both. We're going to submit, and hopefully this works. It's creating this stager so that I can then download it and host it. So there we go. We have that stager. Next stager we said was an SCT file. So again, the listener set it to HTTP. We're going to leave everything just default, submit that. And then the last one was a DLL. So all of these are stagers that will connect. I think I'm up against x86. And then you do have to change. This is actually something that's working today and should be working today to get around Defender. So let me make sure that all that is correct. Partial field truth, string 1. Yes. All right. You guys are talking about Kubernetes and stuff. Guess I lost you. All right. So we got our stagers running. Now we need to download them. So I generally just download these into oh, what did I do wrong? I did something wrong there. Should be able to download these as I'm gonna recreate that HTA one because it should be an HTA file. Wonder if this, oh, that's why I didn't put an out file. See, I knew something was going to run amok. So there we go. Let me download that into /temp. All right. So next step is to host this. There's a cool tool out called PwnDrop. I don't have time for that right now, but definitely check it out. It's a nice way to to host files. So here I see my resume.hta, I see my launcher.sct and launcher.dll. So I'm just going to run python-m simple http server on 8080, and that should be up. Now, to test this out, best thing is to do it from my own system first. Go to http 10.0.0.187 on 8080. See, cool, that looks like it works. Try to download this HTA file. Oh, virus detected. Yeah, that's fine. It's virus detected because my Windows Defender is running, but it doesn't matter. I know it works. That's all that matters to me. So over here, I'm going to write an email. This is a mail server that you would use in my class to send phishing emails. So I'm going to send an email to Danny. I know that because I did recon and we're emulating it. And hopefully she clicks on this. So I send that over, and let's see. Let's see if Danny's opening up emails. Okay. Nope, she did not. I did just update this, so let's see. Okay. Let's find out why this isn't working. 10.0.0.187 over 8080. Okay. So if you were to manually execute this, and let's see if this will work. I actually have it here. This is my backup. Is mshta. Nope. Why is this not working? Let's find out. 187, 8080. Is this not loading anymore? Oh, look, something is working. Oh, never mind. They both worked. Awesome. I'm just not being patient. Sorry. It's me freaking out. So actually both of those worked, as you can see on the agents. Hooray. Both Danny clicked on the email, that's endpoint 0102, and Jorge, I executed it manually with mshta. All of that is in the notes. So what do we do next? Let's look back at my notes. What are we doing next? So I set up the stagers. I did this. Oh, yeah, let's try to do reflective PE injection. I actually don't know if this will work, so we're just going to find out. So there's a great post about this from this week. It's from BC Security. And let's see if this works. Here, this is what interacting with an agent looks like on Starkiller. So if I run PS, it'll show me what processes there are. I'm just going to pick one. All you need is the process ID. So let's see if that works. All right. Oh, these are x64 processes. Okay, so I need to do something real quick. I need to generate another stager, but using 64-bit. So x64, I think everything else should work. Yeah. So I am on a 64-bit process, which is great. It's generating a DLL file. And we're going to see if this works. Let's overwrite this one. All right. So back to Jorge. You will get your command history down here. That's what's loading right now. So I'm just going to pick a process. DLL host might be a good one. VM. You know what? Let's do something easier. Just start a notepad, because that's the safer thing to migrate to. So another shell command here, ps, to see what our process ID is for notepad. This is part of host enumeration as well, part of the discovery tactic. So where are you, notepad? Notepad 3784. So I'm going to do a PE injection. You find that module, and here you see PowerShell code injection, execution, invoke reflective PE. You do need to like scroll. You see that. I'm going to open it bigger just so you can see better. These optional fields here. DLL path was /temp/launcher.dll, and then the process ID was this. All right, demo gods, let's see what happens. So once you get on a particular process. In this case, it's a PowerShell process, right? It's an HTA file that's running. You want to migrate off of that, and that's what we're trying to do here. We'll see if it works. We would get another agent connection coming in. So let's see if this works. This should bypass most of the controls today. If not, it's okay. See it failed. Error. Call to create remote thread to call. Okay. So things will fail, and that's okay. That is part of this. So if this was something we were emulating, we'd say, all right, this failed, and we'll do something else. So other things that we had to emulate were running whoami. So we're going to run whoami just to see. The good thing about this is it logs everything. So it tells you what time you're running everything. You see in this case, I'm Jorge. I can then go back to the agents. Oh, look at that. It actually worked. I think it worked. Yeah, sweet. So whoever's praying to the demo gods, keep that up. You can see this new shell I got is on Notepad. So I actually did do reflective DLL injection. Let me just run a whoami and see if this agent is actually running. If it does, then that's awesome. It worked. Thank you, BC. Whoa, awesome. So reflective PE injection did work. I'm just not being very patient with anything right now because you all make me nervous. So other things you can run for discovery are situational awareness. I'm not going to do this because of lack of time. I do want to do persistent with userland. So there's a common misconception that you need to escalate privileges to have persistence. That's not true. There's what we call userland persistence, and I'm going to do that. So if I just look up userland through the registry, because that is what we are supposed to do as part of our adversary emulation plan, then here you could give it a name, a listener. The listener has to be HTTP, which is the name of our listener. There's also other optional fields. In this case, we're going where our threat intel told us, right? Software, Microsoft Windows current version debug. Let me actually make sure of that. Our threat intel said software Windows error. Yeah, Windows debug. Okay, so let's submit that. So this userland persistence will work once, if it runs successfully, obviously, and then once the user logs in again. So if the machine's rebooted, it won't work. You actually have to log in. So if I go over here and I do a reg edit, and I go over to current machines, software, Microsoft, I think it was Windows, current version, right? There we go. There's the debug. So it did write to it. When this machine is rebooted and the user logs in, Jorge logs in, then I'll have a shell again. And then I think the last part of this that I want to show, let me take a look. What was it? Oh, yeah, defense evasion. So defense evasion using reg server 32. This is why we created that SCT file. And you can see the command here. What I did was I think I just have it on my desktop. Yeah. So I created this Chrome that looks very much like Chrome. And if you, there's no way I can make this bigger. If you look at the shortcut, it's not actually starting Chrome. It's starting command.exe-c, and then I'm running reg svr 32.exe. This is what's called a LOL bin, a living off the land binary. That's just part of Windows. If you have application whitelisting, you kind of need this to run, right? Very few people actually don't allow it. Additionally, it has a /i interface, which allows you to go out to the internet, and it's proxy aware. So I'm actually just hosting this file on launcher.sct, and then you have the scrobj.dll. Let me see if I can move this to a system that will actually run it. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see. 10.0.0.187.80.80. It's weird that it's not pulling up my site, yet when I ran it, it did. I don't think I have to drag and drop. Maybe I can pull it from here. Did I kill that file? Oh, I'm getting some errors here. Let me stop this and start it again. There we go. All right, let's try again. There we go. Save the file. Open folder. Okay, so this chrome.exe, you can see here, we look at the properties. It's going to run that, it's going to pull that launcher and run. So let's take a look. I'm just going to double click it and see if it works. I don't know if it will work. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Yep, it actually did. I just got a new session. So if you go to Starkiller and you go to agents, I should have, there I have a new agent running through this reg svr. Now, always clean up after yourself when you're done doing all this stuff. I will do that later. But pretty much what we did is we used C2 matrix to figure out which C2 we're going to use. We chose Empire 3 with Starkiller. We downloaded Slingshot C2 matrix, which was just released, and it has Empire. Then you follow the how-to at Empire, where I took decent notes, and we emulated this adversary. When you're done with all of that, you do need to bring value. So a lot of red teams just like breaking stuff, and that's awesome. I'm with you. It's fun. But we actually have to give value. That way they give us more money, more budget, more heads, so we hire more badass people into our team. So this is the not so much fun part. What I do is I use Vector. Vector is on the on Slingshot. You create test cases for each one of these. So I created the test cases in a table. I would import them here. I would put, reg svr 32, and then work with the blue team afterwards to see if they caught anything and whatnot. This is what it looks like. These are just reports after creating. This is APT 33. This is what you emulate in my 2-day class. And here's a heat map. And then one of the things that I found with C2 matrix is that we have to continually repeat the same things over and over. So you do this blind assessment and you have all these findings, right? Like all these things worked. The blue teams to detect things, and then the operational teams and engineers, if they want to block any of this, it takes a lot of time. That's why we actually try doing red team engagements like these every 3 months, every quarter, and it failed because we were just doing the same thing over and over while the organization wasn't getting better quick enough. So one of the things that we had to work with was everyone on the blue team. So imagine right now PowerShell. We use PowerShell here, and to detect PowerShell, you need to enable PowerShell logging, which is a feature after PowerShell version 5. So all supported versions of Windows have it. You need to first turn on that logging on the endpoint. Then once you verify that the logging is actually working, you need to send it somewhere. So whether you use a Splunk agent, and shout out to the previous talk on Splunk, from the folks at Splunk, or you're using the event forwarder, that needs to go somewhere. So then you need to test that that's actually getting forwarded. And then you need to have some sort of analytics running, because you don't want to just dump all those logs on the team. So our red team was just retesting over and over and over. At one point, something similar to this, we were running multiple times per day. So we went out there and we started looking at a number of vendors that do kind of the automation, right? And no vendor is going to do full end-to-end red team automation, right? I saw John Strand's post and agree with him 100%, right? You can't replace the human part of, doing the recon, doing the show engineering, actually seeing if things work or not, right? Some things failed and then ended up working here. You can't just automate all of that, right? But you can automate some parts of it. So we went through, and I want to give a shout out to C2 Matrix collaborators and an awesome product called Scythe that does just that. It uses cyber threat intelligence, has a threat catalog, you create an emulation plan, and then you run it. Just like what we did here. Sure, you can do that with any of these other C2s, but what about that repetitive part? So our main test case, our red team loved us for, and I see some of you on, shout out to Dave and Carlos and Elvis are on listening. We got the red team to not have to be repeating this over and over by implementing a product like this. So I wrote a post on this. There are a number of different purple team tools. Just want to give a shout out and to friends over there at Scythe. And in 15 minutes or less, that is an adversary emulation of APT-19 using the new Empire 3 and Starkiller GUI. For more info, the c2matrix.com. Follow us. I posted the slides at Jorge Orchilles on Twitter. So that went at 2:15. And at 2:30, you got from C2 Matrix the link to download the latest Slingshot, which has 8 C2s that you can do along with Vector, which we talked about. And if you love this stuff, I have a 2-day SANS course that's running virtual 3 times in the next month, twice during the week and once on a weekend. So whatever works for you. We do this, but with APT-33, we go a lot deeper in actually understanding what happens under the hood. It's not just about running tools. So do sign up for that. I would love for you to be in the class and get your feedback. And that's it.